Hey guys, today I'm making a video on why you should never smoke marijuana and that it is totally dissimilar to substances such as alcohol, cigarettes, or caffeine. Despite what popular media says, despite what your friends might tell you on why you should smoke marijuana, that it's just like alcohol, there's no difference, that it'll leave your system in a couple weeks, and so on and so forth. All those things are just not true. So the main substance in marijuana is called THC. And I'm basically going to break this down using something called the partition coefficient. So that is a new term probably to most people watching this video. And basically, it is a ratio given to certain substances of how much that substance either dissolves in an oil or in water. So basically, chemists take something called, it's like a funnel pretty much, you can say, and they have two layers. When you mix oil and water, you get two layers, right? And if you have oil and water and you add, let's say, alcohol, alcohol is extremely, it's pretty, when you have something like ethanol, it is similar to water in the sense that, and like dissolves like, so most of that ethanol will go into the water layer. So in the oil layer, there will be very little alcohol. So that's what's basically the partition coefficient. It's the ratio of how much is in that oil-like layer compared to the water layer. So if something is, if the oil, you add a substance and most of it dissolves in the oil layer and very little dissolves in the water layer, it gives you a very high partition coefficient, meaning that this substance is extremely lipophilic. It likes lipids, it likes oil-like substances. So, as I said, ethanol is first of all, it's an extremely small molecule, and it's an extremely hydrophilic molecule. It likes water, it's similar to water. So the partition coefficient of alcohol is about 0.2, extremely small. So the majority of that's basically like nothing is in the oil and all of it is pretty much in the water, because like dissolves like. That's a basic law of chemistry. And so basically, when chemists added THC to measure the partition coefficient, they found that the partition coefficient, depending on the measuring way that they're measuring, depending on what substance they're using as the oil layer and so on and so forth, was a minimum of 6,000. 6,000 compared to 0.2. That is a major, major, major difference. So basically what this tells us, because as I'm talking about, you might say, what's the point of all this? Well, once we find out that the partition coefficient of THC is 6,000, what that means is this thing just gets sucked up into the fat cells of the body, the adipose cells of the body, the adipose tissue. So when you ingest THC, it just gets absorbed by the fat of the body, and it gets stuck in there. It's very difficult for the body to flush it out. So when you drink alcohol, because it's very similar to water and its partition coefficient is very low, it's very easy for it to be dissolved in the plasma and just kind of get flushed out by the liver and the kidneys. It's much, much easier versus when you take THC in, that's just getting absorbed straight into the tissues and it gets stuck there. So most websites that you'll read about marijuana will tell you that, well, it doesn't show up on a test after, let's say, a maximum of 90 days or whatever on your hair or whatever, so it must be out of your system. But that's untrue. When you smoke marijuana, just because it goes and gets stuck in your fat cells, that's correct that it might not show up on a test because it's not circulating in the body to show up on a urine test or going into hair follicles in order to show up in your hair. So, but it's still in the body. And as you smoke more and more and more marijuana, that effect accumulates as it just keeps getting sucked up in different pockets of fat in the body. The brain is majority fat, so it's just getting sucked up into the brain. There's so many fundamental problems with THC compared to alcohol or caffeine. This is no way, shape, or form similar to alcohol. This is a totally different class of drug, and over time, continuously smoking marijuana will continue to impede the body and its proper function, mental function. You'll get brain fog. I mean, there's plenty of evidence that shows that long-term use is not good for marijuana, and hopefully this dissuades you from even short-term use or even trying it, because this will get stuck in your fat cells. It's going to be there for long periods of time. We're talking years. We're not talking 3 weeks or a month or 2 months. And there's also a lot of evidence that people that have done heavy workouts after they haven't taken some sort of drug for years, let's say. They do some sort of heavy workout that burns a lot of fat and brings the fat and the broken down cells into the bloodstream, and they show up positive on different blood tests that they would never have showed up before, because all those drugs are just lodged in different parts of the body. They're not really present. They're not circulating in the system to show up on blood tests, but they're stuck there creating problems. So this is basically just to dissuade you from smoking marijuana. It's a totally different viewpoint that you kind of had to piece together from different research sources and my own experience in dealing with people that have smoked marijuana. So this is not a drug that is any way, shape, or form similar to alcohol or nicotine. This is something with a partition coefficient, sometimes depending on the measuring, as high as 10,000, and this just gets sucked up straight into the fat cells of the body and stays there for very, very long periods of time. So please reconsider. If you're someone that's thinking about doing it, do not do it, and use this video. You could show it to your friends to show why you shouldn't do it, that it's not as simple as the popular media is explaining it to be, that it's just a simple drug that'll leave your system after a short period of time. It is not like that. So watch this video, share it around, and do not try or smoke marijuana.